Title: The Handyman Who Knew Too Much. My name is Thomas Tom Kincaid, 71 years old, American, retired union electrician, 38 years of crawl spaces, breaker panels, conduit runs, and midnight calls when the heat died in a school wing. A life built on 2 rules: trust the meter and trust the pattern. The first rule kept me alive on the job. The second rule saved me when my own family began treating my life like an inventory list. The trouble began with 2 small things: a back door that stuck and a kitchen faucet that dripped. Harmless problems. Ordinary problems. The kind that happen in any house after 30 years of Midwest winters. The kind that normally earn a trip to the hardware store, a new washer, and 15 minutes of work. In my case, those 2 small problems became the opening of something much larger. My wife, Marlene, died in late March, a cold spring where the wind still carried bite and the grass refused to green. A pulmonary infection that moved faster than the doctors expected. 1 week of cough and fatigue, 1 morning of shallow breathing, then a hospital room with humming machines, and then a silence so complete it felt physical. The house waited for her in every room. A robe on the bathroom hook, towels folded with her exact corners, lavender soap in the linen closet, the last grocery list on the fridge with her handwriting leaning slightly to the right. Even the porch light felt lonely, blinking on at dusk like a habit that no longer had a reason. We had been married 44 years. We met at a county fair in 1978. I was the guy running electrical cords for vendors, and she was selling homemade jam with her aunt. A jar of peach preserves ended up in my hands, warm from the sun, and a smile made the fair lights look dim. A year later, we were in a 1-bedroom apartment with a used couch and a coffee table built from a door. No money, no glamour, only steadiness. Bills paid on time, food in the pantry, a car that started. A life built slowly and honestly. Our daughter, Lauren, grew up inside that steadiness. 42 now, professional, polished, a tidy career in property management, a tidy husband named Miles, 2 kids with soccer cleats and straight-A expectations. A life that looks stable from the outside and feels like a constant sprint on the inside. After the funeral, Lauren handled everything. Paperwork, calls, logistics. That kind of efficiency always looked like love in her, and grief makes a person accept help without examining the price tag. She insisted that being alone was unsafe. A stay at her house until things settle. A few weeks, a safer place. Company, normal dinners. A grandkid's laugh in the hallway instead of quiet air. I resisted at first. Our home mattered. Marlene and I bought it in 1992, a modest brick ranch in Indianapolis with a maple tree that dumped leaves like confetti every October. I painted that house twice, wired the garage myself, fixed the basement sump pump so many times I could have done it blind. Marlene planted roses by the walkway and talked to them like stubborn friends. Lauren pushed harder. Falls. Loneliness. Neighbors finding me on the floor. Fear wrapped in a daughter's voice. I agreed to a temporary plan. 2 weeks, maybe 3. My suitcase stayed half-packed in the guest room. My own house sat empty except for the hum of the fridge and the click of the thermostat. Lauren kept a key. That made her feel responsible. It also made her feel entitled. The first week at Lauren's house went well enough. The kids were loud. Meals appeared. A routine formed. Then the cracks showed. Work stress showed up in Lauren's posture and in Miles's voice. The pressure of bills sat at their table every night like an extra chair. My presence shifted from guest to inconvenience without anyone naming it. A sigh when I moved too slowly. A look at the clock when I returned from the bathroom. A television volume changed the moment I entered the room, as if my breathing altered their comfort. Lauren began folding help into paperwork. A stack of forms appeared on the kitchen counter one morning, lined up like a quiet ambush. A medical release in case of emergencies. A general authorization for contractors to coordinate maintenance. A bank trusted contact form with her name already written in. Efficiency again, the kind of efficiency that skips consent and calls it love. My hands moved the papers aside, a calm refusal, a reminder that I had handled my own life for decades. Lauren's expression tightened. A quick smile returned, but the delay mattered. Later that day, she moved my mail from my bag to a drawer without mentioning it. When I reached for it, the drawer was closed. A pattern does not announce itself. A pattern accumulates. The house needed maintenance, she repeated. My house, not hers. The empty one. A few issues fixed so it would be safe for my return. Lauren used her work contacts to find a handyman, someone trusted, someone who could fix a few small problems quickly. His name was Curtis Vale, mid-50s, strong hands, calm smile, a hat that looked like it had never been washed, boots with clean soles, a clipboard that looked less like organization and more like control, the kind of man who looked like he belonged in any garage, any back porch with a broken step. Curtis arrived on a Tuesday morning. Lauren drove me to my house and stayed long enough to exchange pleasantries and confirm a schedule. Her phone buzzed. Work called. She left, leaving me inside my own home with a stranger and an emptiness that felt like a hollow chest. The first hour looked normal. Faucet cartridge replaced. Hinge tightened. Strike plate adjusted so the back door latched smoothly. Curtis worked quietly. Professional enough. Then the pattern began. Time in rooms unrelated to the work order. A slow walk down the hallway toward the bedroom. A pause in the doorway. A scan that landed on surfaces instead of walls. A glance at the dresser. A glance at the closet. A glance at the corner where Marlene and I kept a fireproof box hidden inside a larger cabinet. A subtle shift in posture when his eyes landed on it. That box was not a vault, not a dramatic safe. A heavy steel case with a combination dial bolted inside a wooden cabinet behind old blankets. It held what most older couples keep: birth certificates, the deed, insurance paperwork, a few family rings, and a small amount of emergency cash. Nothing cinematic, just a lifetime condensed into paper and metal. Curtis returned to the kitchen, but the glance stayed with me. On job sites, eyes mean something. People look where their mind intends to go. The next visit, Curtis appeared earlier than scheduled. The porch camera caught him on the doorstep at 7:12 a.m., even though the appointment window began at 9. A pause. A look around. Something on his phone. Then he left before I arrived. A quiet test. Lauren waved it away. Scheduling mistake. Nothing more. Then a word appeared in Curtis's mouth that should not have been there. Strongbox. A casual mention, like a man commenting on weather. Like a detail that belonged to the job. It did not. The word landed in my brain like a pebble dropped into still water. A stranger in my house naming something meant to be invisible. That night at Lauren's, sleep refused to arrive. The HVAC hummed and a dishwasher ran, ordinary suburban sounds that should have been comforting. My mind stayed awake, turning the situation over like a wire nut between fingers. Curtis knew about the box. Curtis knew when the house was empty. Curtis had access. Lauren brought him into my life. A sharper thought arrived after midnight. Lauren might have mentioned it. Carelessly, in the way people talk about spare keys and file cabinets. or intentionally in the way people talk when they believe ownership is inevitable. Grief makes a person naive, but it also sharpens certain senses. I began noticing how often Lauren used words like assets and simplify, how quickly she intercepted my mail, how casually she pushed the topic of my deed, how often she repeated keeping things in the family, like family meant her. 2 days later, I returned to my house alone under the excuse of checking the mail and watering plants. Lauren's schedule kept her busy. Miles had a meeting. The kids had practice. No one had time to supervise an old man doing pointless tasks. The house felt colder without Marlene's presence. Not temperature cold, absence cold. I walked room to room and let my eyes do what they had always done on job sites, look for shifts. Not dramatic changes, small ones, an inch, a scratch. A new mark where there should be none. The cabinet holding the steel box looked untouched at first. Blankets in place. Dial aligned. No obvious signs of tampering. Then the details surfaced. A scratch near the cabinet hinge that did not belong. A faint scuff on the floorboard in front of the cabinet. A sweet chemical note in the air, like plastic warmed by friction. A human being with time and intention had stood there. In the hallway, I noticed something else. My bedroom window latch sat 0.5 millimeter off, as if it had been tested and reset. Not forced, tested. The house held its breath. Outside, my neighbor, Mrs. Becker, watered her front garden. She had watched my house for years, the kind of neighbor who remembered trash day and knew everyone's dog name. She waved when she saw me. Her face carried sympathy first, then concern. A quiet comment followed about a man coming by for work last week. A man with a clipboard and clean boots. He had walked around the side yard and spent a long time near the bedroom window. Lauren had been with him that day. My stomach tightened. Mrs. Becker mentioned another detail that mattered more. Curtis had stood on the driveway, looking at the house, then looking at her, then looking away. A careful look, like measuring who noticed what. That was when I understood the full advantage of an empty house. An empty house gives people time. The next morning, another envelope arrived at Lauren's, already opened. This time, it was from the county assessor, property tax documentation. The kind of mail that reveals values and ownership, the kind of mail predators love. Lauren offered another smooth explanation. Kids, mistake, accident. The cut was clean again. A trip to my bank happened that same afternoon. Not to ask permission, not to start a war. To anchor my accounts in reality. At the bank, a manager reviewed account access logs. Unusual activity appeared. Multiple login attempts, one from a device not recognized, and a phone number change request that did not complete. Someone had been close. Someone had been trying. The manager suggested a security review and a trusted contact option. I placed Victor's name there, not Lauren's. Two-factor authentication enabled, new passwords created, statements redirected to a secure mailbox. Driving back, I felt the strange mix of anger and clarity that arrives when suspicion becomes documented fact. Lauren's home became harder to breathe in. Small questions appeared in every glance, every casual mention, every form left on the counter. One afternoon, Lauren invited a home health assessment professional to the house. A woman with a clipboard and a pleasant tone. A routine evaluation. Lauren framed it as support, as safety. The timing felt wrong. The purpose felt wrong. My hands stayed calm, my voice stayed calm, my mind stayed sharp. The woman ran through standard questions and simple memory tasks. The answers came easily. The evaluation ended with no concerns. Lauren looked disappointed in a way she tried to hide. That disappointment confirmed everything. A narrative was being built. A narrative that could justify keys, documents, and control. That night, I called Victor. A quiet visit at his kitchen table turned fear into structure. Coffee, 2 old men, no drama, only facts. Victor listened without jokes, without dismissing. A slow nod at each detail. A suggestion followed. Create a decoy. Not a trap meant to hurt someone. A trap meant to reveal truth. If Curtis wanted the strongbox, then Curtis could be offered a strongbox. A decoy box went into my cabinet the next day. Old steel, heavy enough to look convincing, filled with junk paperwork that looked real from a glance. Photocopies, expired cards, blank forms, and a few fake-looking statements printed from templates. Enough to lure greed, not enough to destroy a real life. The real box moved to Victor's home, locked away where no one else could reach it. A small camera went into my house as well. Nothing elaborate. A simple motion device in the living room and another in the hallway, enough to build a record of movement without turning my home into a fortress. The footage stored in an account under my control. Victor held backup copies. The house became a stage with lights turned on. Quiet observation, no confrontation. Days passed. Then Curtis showed up on a Saturday morning without an appointment. The doorbell camera caught him carrying a toolbox and wearing those clean-soled boots. 1 ring, a wait, a second ring, a longer wait. No answer. He walked around the side, tested the back door, then stepped back and looked up at the eaves, scanning for cameras. A quick look left and right, movement toward the bedroom window. Confidence, intent. A man acting like time belonged to him. Then a second car arrived, Lauren's SUV, pulling into the driveway quickly, not casually. Curtis met her at the front steps, bodies angled away from the street, hands moving in short gestures. No audio, but body language speaks. Curtis gestured toward the side of the house. Lauren pointed toward the garage. Curtis nodded. Lauren handed him something small, likely a key. The pattern now had a face. Not suspicion. Proof in shape and motion. Victor watched the feed from his living room. My hands stayed steady at my sides. A surprising calm arrived, the calm that comes when the unknown turns into the known. The next call went to Mariah Jensen, an elder law attorney recommended through Victor's family. A reputation for moving fast when exploitation appeared. She listened, focused and direct, and advised immediate safety steps. Keep distance, document everything. Law enforcement only with clarity and evidence. Victor placed a call to the non-emergency police line. Suspicious activity at a vacant residence. Possible unlawful entry in progress. A patrol car arrived within 15 minutes. Curtis stood near the garage side door. Lauren stood by her car with arms crossed, watching the street like someone waiting for a delivery. Their faces changed when the officer stepped out. Surprise first, then controlled innocence. Identification followed, explanations followed. Curtis tried to frame it as scheduled work. Lauren tried to frame it as family management. Both stories collided with a simple fact. No scheduled appointment, homeowner absent, perimeter check on camera, key exchange on camera. A question arrived from the officer, clean and unavoidable. Legal authority. Lauren did not have it. The officer instructed Curtis to leave the property immediately. The officer also requested Lauren remain while the situation was clarified. Lauren's phone buzzed like a trapped insect. Miles arrived within minutes, face flushed, jaw tight, walking toward the driveway like a man entering a fight he did not choose. His eyes moved from Lauren to Curtis to the officer, confusion spreading like ink in water. Curtis packed his tools quickly and drove away. Lauren stayed. Her expression stayed controlled, but the control looked cracked around the edges. That evening brought a meeting at Mariah's office. Victor and I arrived first. Footage played on her screen. The unannounced arrival, the scanning for cameras, the key handoff. Mariah remained still through it, but her eyes sharpened at certain frames, the way an electrician's eyes sharpen at a burn mark around a breaker. A strategy formed with no emotion and all precision. Immediate revocation of any informal access and written notice to Lauren that entry and management were not authorized. Lock change by a licensed company outside Lauren's vendor network. Financial controls, mail rerouting, password resets, credit monitoring, competence documentation, a medical evaluation outside anyone's influence to preempt any sudden guardianship attempt, evidence preservation, footage backups, and a clear chain of custody. Mariah explained something that made the room feel colder. When older adults lose a spouse, predators often appear in familiar clothing. Family, caregivers, helpers, contractors. The fastest path is control. Control of keys, control of documents, control of the story that the older adult is not managing well. A handyman with a clipboard becomes a weapon when a family member supplies access and a narrative. The next week unfolded like a slow reveal of truth that had been growing under the surface for years. Lauren requested a meeting at Victor's condo. Not a request with softness, a demand wrapped in righteousness. Mariah attended as well. No private manipulation allowed. Lauren arrived with a folder of papers, bills, receipts, printed charts, a narrative. A portrait of a responsible daughter and a grieving father, struggling. The folder contained one document that made everything click. A maintenance authorization form with my name typed at the bottom. A forged signature, shaky and inconsistent. Broad permission for Curtis to handle repairs and secure valuables to prevent loss. Secure valuables. A phrase that turned my stomach. Mariah placed the document on the table like a brick. A direct statement followed. The signature was fraudulent, the form was void, and the matter could become criminal if pressed further. Lauren tried to pivot into fear language, concern language, safety language. Pretty words. Mariah slid still images across the table. Key handoff, unannounced arrival, perimeter scan. Lauren's eyes flicked across them. Her face hardened. The mask slipped enough to reveal motive. Money stress. A second mortgage. Credit cards running hot. A failed side business for Miles. Kids' tuition climbing. Bonuses shrinking. The pressure squeezing until my house became solution-shaped. Not my welfare, my property. The plan likely began as a temporary loan. A quick check in the strongbox. A sale of jewelry, a refinance, a signature because Dad wouldn't understand. The kind of thinking that grows once it starts. Curtis fit the plan because Curtis had done it before. A man who knows the right questions. A man who scans rooms for hiding places. A man who uses safety as an excuse to touch what does not belong to him. A simple question arrived next with nowhere to hide. How did Curtis learn about the strongbox? Lauren's silence settled it. The next steps happened without drama, but with force. A formal police report filed with the footage and the forged authorization. A complaint sent to the licensing board and to the vendor networks Curtis relied on. A written notice to Lauren prohibiting entry to my home without explicit permission. A bank fraud report concerning password resets and verification attempts. A protective order petition for trespass intent and document fraud support. Curtis vanished from my daughter's orbit immediately, not out of innocence, out of self-preservation. Then, Curtis made his mistake. Contact with Miles directly. A message implying payment was owed and Information existed that would be unpleasant if ignored. A soft blackmail attempt wrapped in contractor language. Miles forwarded it to Mariah. Mariah forwarded it to the detective assigned to the case. A formal interview followed. Curtis tried to frame it as misunderstanding. The footage and forged authorization made misunderstanding impossible. Charges moved forward slowly, as real cases do. No dramatic raid, no headline. Only a tightening net that makes bad actors stop smiling. Lauren attempted a second move as well. A dangerous move. An emergency guardianship petition. The filing portrayed me as confused, isolated, unable to manage finances, vulnerable to scams. The irony tasted bitter. The document used phrases from the home health assessment and twisted them into fear. It leaned on grief as proof of incompetence. Mariah countered quickly. The medical evaluation report, the bank security records, the camera footage, the forged authorization, the neighbor's statement about perimeter checks, the timeline. A hearing date arrived within weeks, not months. The legal system moves faster when someone pushes an emergency button. Walking into the courthouse felt like walking into a place built for other people's disasters. Fluorescent lights, worn floors, the sound of quiet panic. Lauren sat with her own lawyer. She wore the face of a worried daughter, the kind of face that plays well to strangers. Miles sat behind her, shoulders heavy, eyes on the floor. Victor sat beside me, calm and steady. Mariah laid evidence on the table like bricks, one after another, building a wall between my life and someone else's hunger for control. The judge listened. The judge reviewed. The judge looked directly at Lauren. A question about keys. A question about forged documents. A question about why a contractor had been on the property without appointment. Lauren's answers tangled. Concern language, safety language, family language. The footage played on a court screen, the key exchange, the scanning, the timing. The judge's expression changed in small increments, the way any experienced person's expression changes when truth becomes visible. The petition was denied. Not denied with gentleness. Denied with a warning about misuse of guardianship proceedings. Walking out of that courthouse felt like breathing oxygen after weeks underwater. Lauren's face in the hallway looked shocked, not heartbroken. Shocked that the narrative failed. That evening, another twist landed. Curtis had been interviewed again. This time with more pressure. This time with additional evidence from other complaints that surfaced once his name entered official systems. A former client contacted the detective. An older woman in a nearby suburb. Similar story, repairs that drifted into private rooms, questions about valuables, a missing envelope, a locksmith suggestion, then an abrupt disappearance when suspicion rose. Curtis was not a one-time problem. Curtis was a pattern wearing work gloves. For the first time, shame arrived in me, not for what happened, but for how easily people like Curtis move through communities. How often victims blame themselves. How often families look away because it is uncomfortable. I refused the shame. Instead, I turned it into fuel. My house became secure again. Locks replaced. A licensed security company installed exterior cameras and sensors. No secrets. No hiding places for predators. Any entry would become visible immediately. The cabinet where the strongbox used to hide became symbolic. A place where I had tried to keep life's essentials safe through concealment. A place that proved concealment alone is not protection when predators gain insider access. I moved the real box into a proper safe deposit arrangement and kept only copies at home. Not out of fear, out of wisdom. Lauren's access ended completely. No keys, no passwords, no authority, no narrative control. Contact became rare and controlled, written only, documented. Boundaries like steel, because steel is honest. The weeks around that hearing became a strange new education. Lauren did not stop at the courthouse. The denial only changed her tactics. The pressure returned through softer channels, the way water finds cracks in concrete. A realtor friend appeared in her contacts list, and suddenly the phrase market assessment started floating through the air at dinner. A casual idea framed as curiosity, a quick valuation, a harmless number to know, a way to plan. Planning is another pretty word. Planning can also be a theft attempt wearing good manners. One Saturday morning, Lauren announced an appointment at my house. A realtor visit, just a walkthrough. Nothing more. The tone carried certainty, like consent had already been collected. I agreed to attend, not because the plan made sense, but because patterns reveal themselves best when given room to unfold under light. The realtor arrived with a tablet and a practiced smile. She moved through my living room with the gaze of someone measuring square footage in her mind. She praised the brick exterior and the neighborhood and the maple tree, then drifted toward my bedroom and the back hallway with curious eagerness. A line about staging followed. A line about decluttering followed. A line about family handling it to reduce stress followed. Lauren hovered close, nodding too quickly, watching the realtor's movements like a supervisor, not like a daughter. The realtor's eyes landed on the cabinet where the strongbox used to hide. A pause. A slight tilt of the head. That look felt familiar. Not the look of someone listing a house, the look of someone tracking a target. My voice stayed calm. My feet moved between the realtor and that cabinet without drama. My body remembered how to control space the way it had controlled job sites. The walkthrough ended early. After the realtor left, Lauren's face tightened into something sharper than frustration. Words about stubbornness formed in her throat and stayed there. She looked at me like I was breaking a contract that existed only in her head. That afternoon brought another moment of truth, smaller but louder in meaning. I took out the trash at Lauren's and noticed shredded paper in the bin. Not random scraps. Long strips from a shredder. The kind people use when they believe destroying paper destroys accountability. A strip caught my eye. The top edge of a bank statement, the part with my name and a partial account number. A second strip showed my home address. A third strip showed a date, recent. My chest went cold. Lauren had been handling my mail, intercepting it, then destroying pieces of it once the information had been extracted. Predators do not always steal money first. Sometimes they steal awareness. Sometimes they steal time. I placed the strips back in the bin and returned to the guest room without confrontation. Confrontation gives manipulators fuel. Evidence takes fuel away. The following week delivered a different kind of encounter, the kind you do not plan. I stopped at a hardware store near my old neighborhood to pick up a few basics for my house. Screws, weather stripping, a new outlet cover plate. Small work, the kind that kept my hand steady when grief tried to shake me. In aisle 7, near the tool display, Curtis Vale stood with a cart. Same hat, same clipboard, same clean-soled boots. For a moment, the world narrowed into a single line of sight. Two men in the same aisle, each understanding something about the other. Curtis glanced at me and recognized me instantly. Recognition flashed, then a friendly mask slid into place. A casual wave, a casual smile, a casual approach. His body angled in a way that blocked the aisle slightly, creating a small cage of space. Curtis's words carried friendliness, but the eyes stayed sharp, measuring. A comment about how things were going. A comment about working with Lauren. A comment about making sure the old place stays secure. No direct threat, no direct admission, only a feeling of pressure pressing through politeness. My response stayed short and flat. A nod, a step to the side. A line about everything being handled now through counsel and proper channels. Curtis's smile thinned for a second. A little flicker of irritation, like a breaker arcing before it trips. Then he shifted tactics, offering another kind of friendliness, the kind that sounds like advice. A comment about how hard it is for families. A comment about how paperwork can get messy. A comment about how people overreact these days. The words sounded ordinary. The intent behind them did not. I left the aisle and the store without drama. In the parking lot, I noticed Curtis's truck at the far end, backed in, positioned for a quick exit. A man who always planned for leaving fast. That night, Mariah received a note with the date and location of the encounter. Documentation again, bricks in the wall. After the hearing, the detective assigned to Curtis's case called Mariah with an update. Additional complaints had surfaced once Curtis's name started circulating. Patterns from other neighborhoods. Similar behavior. A repair request turning into private room wandering. Questions about cash for safety. An attempt to collect keys under the excuse of upgrading locks. Then an abrupt disappearance when suspicion rose. One case involved an older couple who had lost a wedding ring and a stack of savings bonds. Another case involved a widow who noticed her cabinet hinge scratches and a missing envelope. Another case involved a veteran whose adult son discovered a forged maintenance agreement in his father's files. Curtis was not improvising. Curtis was repeating. A second interview occurred, this time with more weight behind it. A search warrant followed for Curtis's vehicle and storage unit, based on the forged authorization, the attempted unlawful entry, and the new complaints. The detective did not share details with me. Investigations are not entertainment. They are slow, careful, built around procedure. But one outcome reached me through Mariah. The search turned up a collection of keys and key tags, far too many for one man's legitimate work. A stack of photocopied IDs, a folder labeled with street names. No Hollywood treasure, no dramatic vault, just the plain tools of exploitation. When Lauren heard about the warrant, something shifted. Not repentance. Fear. Fear is the emotion that predators and collaborators understand best. Lauren's contact attempts increased. Messages turned more frantic, less controlled. A line about fixing this. A line about protecting the kids. A line about not ruining everyone. My answer stayed the same. Boundaries. Then came the night visit. 2 months after the guardianship denial, the alarm company phoned me just after midnight. Motion alert at my house. Side door sensor, immediate dispatch. I reached Victor's condo door in a hurry, coat half on, shoes mismatched. Victor drove. The streets were empty and wet from a light rain, the kind that makes everything shine under streetlights. A patrol car already sat in my driveway when we arrived, lights off, but presence heavy. An officer met us at the curb and guided us toward the front walk. The porch camera feed had recorded movement in the backyard. A silhouette near the side door. Then a quick retreat when the alarm triggered. A man had not made it inside long enough to take anything. The goal had been entry, not repair. The goal had been speed, not permission. A second patrol unit arrived within minutes and swept the yard with flashlights. Another figure appeared near the alley line, moving quickly, then stopping under the beam. Curtis. Hat gone. Clipboard gone. Confidence gone. His hands were empty when the officer reached him. His face carried the look of a man caught on the wrong side of a plan. Curtis tried to frame it as checking on a property. The words fell flat against alarms, cameras, prior reports, and a denied guardianship petition tied to the same circle of people. The officer placed Curtis in cuffs. Calm, procedural, no shouting, no spectacle, just consequences arriving on time. Inside my house, the cabinet area showed fresh disturbance. The side door frame had a new mark near the latch, the kind of mark that appears when someone tries to rush a lock, then stops when a siren arrives. No missing items, no broken windows. Only proof that the intent never died. Curtis went to jail that night on new charges layered on old ones. The legal net tightened again. Harder this time. The next morning, the neighborhood felt different. Not safer yet. Different because I had stopped being passive. Predators rely on passivity the way thieves rely on darkness. That night visit changed something in me. It turned my story from a near miss into a clear warning that other people could recognize. The next workshop at the library doubled in attendance. Denise set up extra chairs. Victor printed handouts about red flags and resources. Mariah joined by phone for a short Q&A about general protections and where to seek help. Evelyn, the widow from the other neighborhood, attended as well. She sat in the front row with a posture that looked like steel wrapped in skin. After the workshop, she shared her own pattern in quiet detail, the cabinet scratches, the lock upgrade suggestion, the missing mail. Different house, same predator, same playbook. Hearing her talk did something important. It removed the last traces of personal shame. This was not a private failure. This was a public problem. And public problems can be fought with light. Months passed. The legal case moved forward steadily. Curtis lost access to vendor networks. Complaints spread. The kind of man who lives on easy access cannot survive scrutiny. Lauren started therapy, not as redemption, as necessity. Miles separated finances, a separate bank account, a strict budget, a smaller house possibility, a life forced into reality rather than shortcuts. I returned to my home slowly. Mornings there tending the yard, afternoons at Victor's condo near the canal, a gradual reclaiming. One evening, a storm rolled through and the power flickered. The lights dimmed and returned. Old instinct rose. Check the panel, check the load, check the ground. The work of a lifetime. Standing at the breaker box, I realized something small and important. I still belonged to myself. No one else owned my keys. No one else wrote my story. That realization became a seed for something larger. Mariah connected me to a senior advocacy group and invited me to speak at a workshop on exploitation patterns. Not as a victim, as a warning light. A library meeting room, folding chairs, a cheap projector. 10 seniors the first month, 20 the next. A full room after that. Stories poured out. Different faces, same shapes. A niece who managed accounts and kept passwords hidden. A caregiver who organized mail and accidentally opened checks. A contractor who always found reasons to be near the bedroom. A neighbor who offered help with online banking and then became the owner of every account. Predators use new tools. Human weakness stays old. A small fund formed from donations, emergency lock changes, short-term lodging, attorney consult fees. Victor managed the books. Mariah structured it legally. Denise Caldwell, a retired nurse, joined as a volunteer advisor. Sharp questions. No softened truth. The fund needed a name. Marlene used to say, "When a house feels wrong, trust the feeling. When someone's eyes look past you and into your belongings, trust the feeling." The name became simple. The Eyes. Because sometimes the first warning arrives in a glance. A year after Curtis first walked into my home, a plain envelope arrived in my mailbox. A handwritten note from Lauren. No folder, no charts, no narrative. Responsibility without excuses. Commitment to repay any legal expenses created by the mess. A promise to never enter my home without explicit invitation. A request for the possibility of rebuilding trust slowly, someday, if earned. The note ended with a line that landed heavier than the rest. Love without respect becomes possession. The note went into a drawer beside Marlene's recipe cards and our old fair photo. Not as proof of victory, proof that consequences can create learning, even if learning arrives late. Life did not return to what it was. That kind of return is a fantasy. Life moved forward into a different shape, quieter, safer, owned by the person living it. Curtis lost access to easy victims. Lauren lost the illusion of entitlement. Miles gained clarity. Two kids learned that adults can be wrong and still face what they did. And I learned a lesson I should never have needed at my age. The most dangerous person in your home is not always a stranger. Sometimes it arrives wearing familiarity and carrying a toolbox. End.